it is a privilege to be here. Energy efficiency is something that has been important to me. Even in 1986, I did my engineering studies in Southern California. As an outcome, I'm sure, of the whole OPEC 1970s, oil price spike. The Cal Poly Pomona, where I did my undergraduate, they created an alternative energy systems program. So I was studying energy management, right? I still have my notes because I'm a pack rat. So I have that from 1986. And so I've been interested in this for a long time. And it really is a privilege to be working and teaching now this subject at the Clean Energy Research Center. Energy efficiency is probably always, in energy in general, the supply, demand side, supply side balance, or tension in some cases is going to always be important. Right now is as good a time as any. This fall, the PowerSmart division of BC Hydro and the conservation arm of Fortis BC are going through their rate review submissions to the Utilities Commission, and of course, demand side management is a big part of that they're trying to justify, justify their expenditures. Okay. So what I want to do is quickly summarize. There's essentially kind of two camps, if you will. I'll position it that way on energy efficiency. So one is I'll summarize why energy efficiency is so important, why we can't live without it. And then secondly, I'll summarize why there are criticisms of energy efficiency, or really the way that we try to achieve it. So I'm going to go through that relatively quickly and try and really do my best on what I think is the most important part, which is finding solutions. And in my thinking on this, there's kind of three pieces to this I would like to talk about. One is just basic science, definition, system choice, and causality. I won't have time to do full justice to those topics, but I will touch upon it. Then I'll talk about how energy systems really are amenable to a systems approach and what that means. And I will just conclude with a few examples. To get the most out of this talk, it's a lot of information, too much to cover in detail. I've tried to be very careful to show citations and references for important readings, and also even some consideration of experts who I think are really important to go and read more. These slides will be available, made available to GreenTech, and I'm sure posted on the website. So people like Backlash Mills, the late Lee Shipper, Lester Lave, Bill Reed, and others I've strategically chosen some readings from some of these folks and others because I think these are leading thinkers that we can learn from in terms of what they've written. And we'll get started. So why energy efficiency is important? I'm going to go over major arguments. We could spend easily a whole hour or more on this. Energy use and biospheric limits. I would just simply refer you, Backlash Mills written a great book called The Earth's Biosphere. Okay. Yeah, I'll try and stay close to it here. Yeah. So in the back, can you hear me okay? Okay, I'll do that. I don't like to be hidden behind the podium, but I'll do that for now. Secondly, another way of looking at biospheric limits is, of course, Bill Reed is famous for his ecological footprint, and this publication, he pioneered this approach to show that really our cities are depend on really a footprint size of something that's roughly 200 times the size of the city itself. And we'll touch more on certainly the cities and density issue a little bit. Another reason why energy efficiency is so important is because some of our energy-consuming activities, some of the ways we use energy are to our own detriment. They have adverse health outcomes, such as this article there from The Lancet, which is one of the leading medical journals, summarized really, this is talking about transportation emissions and transportation injuries and mortality from traffic collision risks over here. Also, our energy-consuming activities, again picking up on passenger car transportation, it has more than the climate change and the traffic collision risks and the air pollution and things like that. there's actually economic risk, which is why I like to highlight traffic congestion as an example. So this fellow Schrank and his partner Lomax have done what appears to be the leading research on this. And over the years, this is showing for U.S. urban centers, it's showing that from the early 80s up until recent years, this problem of urban congestion has been getting worse. So it's wasted fuel, but it's also, it's considered really an economic risk, because the time that people are spending in their cars wasted isn't, considered a bad thing economically. And they put numbers to this in terms of, so many hours, people's time. When they do these studies, they'll value it at about half the wage rate, whatever that wage rate is. But it works out to a lot of economic value that is lost in traffic congestion. And as they show with their estimates, it's been getting worse, certainly over the past 3 decades. So this is another reason why it's important to be more efficient and in a systems way that I'll get to talk about more. Another reason why energy efficiency is important. So this is a really wonderful study. Mark DeLucci and Mark Jacobson, I think I got both marks correct there. They did a series of 2 studies, and they showed how the global energy system could be converted using, they call it, WWS, wind, water, and sun. And sure enough, they show how our whole planet, without compromising or giving up on our energy services, can be powered by, completely renewable, which is of course good news, but at the same time, this is, directly quoting from their study, we need, the bold of that is by me, we need an increase in energy efficiency. We acknowledge and indeed emphasize the importance of demand-side energy conservation measures, right? So this is just something many of us know already, but certainly experts have looked at, and it gets into this, this balancing act, right? The more we want to uptake of renewables, we can do better on the demand side, on the consumption side. And then on the other hand, large-scale renewables may not be viable for industrialized countries. So one of my favorite authors, Václav Smil, using an energy density argument, he says there's no alternative technique to non-fossil energy conversion that could take over a large share of supply we now derive from fossil fuels. Now Václav Smil, one reason I really love to read his material, he spoke in May at the PEIA organization luncheon. It was wonderful. He's done his homework, to my knowledge, like nobody else on this planet in terms of the natural and the engineering sciences of energy systems. He's written books, he's analyzed it, and really has no equal. And this is a graph that he uses in a few of his writings. So what he's showing here is that the power density, he's trying to compare renewable supply to some of the common end-use demands. Thank you, Elmer. You're going to try and fill the front lines here. So the other thing that's really, Smil has very valuable insights is he shows things on an order of magnitude scale, or a factor of 10 scale. So what he's showing here simply is that he's comparing power density and roughly in order of magnitude numbers how much area things take. So the 2 things are some of the major end-use demands, such as high-rises, steel mills, refineries, supermarkets, and cities. So cities are bigger in scale, and the average, just take the gross average final energy, I'll define that. Final energy, is much higher than what we can get from wind or phytomass, which is your basic plant biomass. Similarly for industry, if you look at the intensity and the spatial scale of industry, there's a lot wrapped up in there. Photovoltaic, there's a little overlap, but he's showing very order of magnitude, right? 2 orders of magnitude difference between the area it would take to power industries in general from biomass. Similarly, high-rises in our homes and so on. So these order of magnitude differences, these are not just linear, are part of the challenge, just the fundamental challenge of powering our energy-intensive societies with renewables. So this is yet another reason to the list of why perhaps efficiency is more important. If we could bring those steel mills, high-rises, refineries down in order of magnitude, which I'll show that it's technically possible. Of course, we're starting to close that gap. Then we have cleaner fossil fuels. One of the main option really is carbon capture and sequestration. And here again, SMIL has done an analysis, and we're not ruling it out, but the reality of CCS as let's say the major solution is very challenging. So in his analysis, just to sequester about a fifth of the current, not any future scenario, but the current CO2 from fossil fuels, we would need an industry that would be something like 70% larger in volume than our current petroleum global crude oil industry, which has taken decades and perhaps trillions of dollars of investment. So, the other issue with this is that there's a time dimension to build and invest and such an industry to sequester even just 20% of our current fossil fuel emissions. So yet another reason for efficiency in our growing list. Technical savings, there's a long history, growing certainly decades, of demonstration that the technical, forget economics, forget policies, and so on, just a pure, let's say, engineering view, excluding cost, because engineering does include cost. What is possible? So this study by Cullen is one that I like to cite, where he analyzed the global potential to reduce our energy consumption was something like 80% without changing energy services. And even more, I think, enlightening from this is that if you read the article, we really just focus on passive systems, not even energy conversion devices. And so for example, for buildings, I'll just pull a couple examples. It shows an analysis based on very detailed and good engineering, 83% savings, right? And for industry, something like 62%. And these are passive measures, right? Building insulation, tankless hot water heating and heat recovery, luminaire and task lighting, efficient appliances, and so on. And then in industry, we're just talking about furnace installation, bigger pipes, and better material handling, and point of use for steam and insulation. Another argument for why energy efficiency is important, why we should consider it to be important. This is a very aggregate graph that shows, on the vertical, it shows this measure called Human Development Index, which is one of many. It's this kind of aggregate measure of welfare and essentially quality of life. And here we show national account levels for different countries. I'm going to watch my time here. And so what this shows is, in the greenish lines, there's a increase in the Human Development Index. So of course we have the lowest income countries here. We've got Ethiopia, Nigeria, Pakistan, and so on. Some of the growing income countries here, India, China, Brazil. And then at the other end of the scale, there's the Western European countries, Japan, the U.S. And for all practical purposes, just put Canada, U.S./Canada. We're, in approximate terms, identical. And so what this shows on a visual and aggregate level is that by this measure, and there's many more, we could have an excellent quality of life with something like half of the primary energy we now consume. Once you get to about 150 gigajoules per person per year of primary energy consumption, this shows that the correlation breaks down. We're not, by this measure, doing better. So arguably we should be more efficient and have, what's wrong with the quality of life of Japan, Germany, and France, and so on, right? That's the argument.